My name is Gretchen Richer. I'm the head of family experience at Vivvi. Vivvi is an early learning and childcare center based in New York City with 3 brick and mortar sites at World Trade Center, Tribeca, and Hudson Yards. Our mission is to really support the working professional, the working parents, and parents in general who are trying to find the childcare solution for them. We want to make sure that we are supporting you in your professional life, but also in your never-ending job of parenting. And so we hope that we offer you incredible care, flexibility, and unrivaled excellence. And we also, through this last year, pivoted to an in-home program that took all of the concepts of the early childcare and learning in our schools and bring them to your home. So we are trying to meet you wherever you are in your life and in your childcare solution in the best way possible. And there's no one we would rather partner with in getting the message out about solving those childcare solutions than Hatch. Hatch is our partner for tonight. And I have a very soft spot in my heart for Hatch because almost 4 years ago when I was pregnant with my son, who is now 3.5, I found the most perfect one-piece jumper that not only made me feel confident and empowered, but just made me feel really comfortable in my skin. And now Hatch, if you are here as part of this session, you know that they are so much more than that. They are really a source of truth. They have created a virtual community reaching out to families to really support them on this journey of childcare and childhood. And so we're so thankful to partner with them and really happy that you found your way to us because of them. Tonight, our topic is Childcare 101. So really thinking through all of those important options and questions you might have surrounding the right childcare for you now. I know we've got a lot of expectant families that are listening, and we've got all sorts of stories that are coming from our panelists. So I hope that throughout the 40 minutes or so that we'll be chatting with one another, if we don't give you the exact right answer that you're looking for, I hope we give you some new solutions and new perspectives so you can fill your toolbox. And with that, the logistics of the webinar will hopefully be having some awesome conversation for the next 45 minutes or so. Primarily, I'll be pummeling these wonderful people with all the questions about their personal lives and the choices they made to think through their childcare solution. And I hope you'll help answer each other's questions as well. And then in the last 15 minutes or so, we'll try to tackle some questions that we might not have answered through our discussion. And so without further ado, I'd love to turn it over to my panelists for tonight. And your first homework for the evening is to share a little bit about who you are. So what do you do in this world for work? What's your position? And then if you have children, how old they are, or if you are expecting when that due date is, or maybe there's a little bit of both out there. And then your childcare journey in a nutshell. And if I'm gonna go from first arrival to last arrival. So Jocelyn, I'm gonna put you in the hot seat to start.
Oh man, why was I early?
The perks of being early.
My name is Jocelyn. I live in New York City with my husband and my 3-year-old, and then I'm also expecting. Let's see, we got thank you guys. I'm due in October. So I worked in digital marketing and PR for the last 10 years. I was head of digital marketing for Laurent Perrier Champagne, which I need more and more. Was my lifeline during COVID. And I also, helped athleisure brands and athletic brands do their digital marketing. And I've kind of stepped back from that the last year, and I'm starting a sustainable kids swimwear line. Wow. So that's been my passion project moving forward. I grew up in Southampton, where I'm lucky to be, right now at my parents' house. So I do have babysitters right now, but
that's your childcare solution 101 right now. Don't ever forget.
For the summer, grandparents are the best, but they're not completely reliable, So I'm like, Mom, I have to work. And she's like, but you work online. And I'm like, it's still work. So I am very lucky, I guess we'll talk about this more, but, we have found a solution that works for us in New York.
Amazing. I'm excited to hear about it. Awesome. Mike, over to you. Tell us about your journey, who you are, what you do.
Yeah, so Mike Jones, I'm in Lower Manhattan. I have been in finance for the last 14 years. My husband was in finance as well for 7, and then he's been a programmer for the last, I guess, 5 years. We had our son Oliver back in May of last year, so he's 14 months now. He's having dinner right next to me here, so if you hear any noise, that's going to be him. We also have a dog who you may have seen jump over my shoulder there onto the couch here recently. But I think between my husband's job and mine, we ended up, and we'll get into it later, but we ended up basically being able to shuttle Oliver back and forth between us via our parental leaves for the first 7 months, and then we ended up starting at Vivvi at the World Trade Center. I guess at month 10 we had some overlap, but yes, we've been there for about 4 months at this point.
Awesome. I'm excited to talk to you about all your group childcare answers for the audience. And finally, Melanie, share with us your story. Hi.
Hi guys, how are you? Nice to meet everyone. I'm Melanie. I am a director at Townhouse Digital. It is a marketing agency, a digital marketing agency. So I can relate, Jocelyn. I'm sure we have a lot in common with our line of work. I am a mom, first and foremost, to a 2.5, I can't believe she's 2.5, 2.5-year-old little girl named Amelia. We obviously went through probably, I think, one of the toughest time periods in toddlerhood, which is like 1 to 2 during COVID. So we had a lot of obstacles and challenges with childcare, mainly because we moved to a different town. We left the city, we moved to Connecticut, which is where we live currently. And we weren't open to interviewing nannies. Nothing was open. So it was quite a difficult past year, but early 2021, we did find a solution, a program very similar to Vivvi's, where they had structure throughout the day. They hit all of the different milestones that we wanted to complete, and gave Amelia, most importantly, socialization, which I think is really important at 2.5. And really their learning model is based on discovery learning. So it was a fantastic match for us. She is out of school right now. So we are in Georgia at my parents' house. They are summer camp. So I also can relate, Jocelyn, but they aren't reliable. They're taking her out for ice cream right now. We'll see if she comes back. I don't know. So yeah, I think that's it in a nutshell. I know there's more to share later.
Yeah, there is definitely so much to share. I should also share that I have a 3.5-year-old. I think I mentioned it when I was referring to my amazing jumper that I'll never forget. And he spends 2 days at Vivvi in Tribeca, but throughout his life, we've done different versions of group care and nanny. And so I would also say that one of the main themes is there is not always just one solution. There could be multiple solutions over multiple years to get to the right solution at your time. So think back, and Melanie, Jocelyn, you're there right now. Think back to when you were, thinking about the first couple months or, prior to having your child. Melanie, what did you think through, and what was your timing about knowing when you wanted to start looking for solutions? So I know we've got a lot of people who are still pregnant and haven't had their child yet. Are you looking right now? Are you exploring options? Or are you just saying, wait, I'm going to have the baby, I'm going to enjoy myself, I'm going to see how I feel, because I could feel completely different? What was your perspective as you were thinking?
I had a very generous maternity leave. So with being pregnant for the first time and becoming a mom for the first time, I really wanted to see how I felt after I had the baby and got adjusted to all of these new things and new roles. I knew that I wanted to work. I knew I wanted to get back to it, and that I also wanted to bring in parties that I trusted. Obviously, again, we had a very unexpected turn of events. Right when we were going to start interviewing for nannies, COVID hit, and then everything became uncomfortable and unsafe. And that was my worry, right? Like I didn't feel comfortable bringing anyone into my home at that point that was traveling around. It's a little bit different now. I think, I'm not sure if anyone's on here that's pregnant with their second, still unsure, but I definitely feel like this time around, I would have lined things up right away. There were a few tough months, right? Like right after maternity leave, when you don't have things lined up, it becomes quite difficult very quickly. And you're kind of rushing around to evaluate all the different daycare programs or school programs in your town. I would line it up if I were pregnant again. But yeah, I mean, hi, Gretchen, it's so tough because it was COVID. You know?
Right. Yeah. Well, then I'll pivot over to Justin and sort of ask the same question. You have the past, if she's 3, you were definitely pre-COVID with the first one. So how can you do a double? What was your process the first time around? And, you know, now that you're doing things a little bit differently with the second, just in the state of the world, have things switched for you, or has anything changed?
Yeah, definitely. So I was lucky. It was pre-COVID that I was pregnant. And then I have the kind of job where I didn't really take a maternity leave. You know, since I have my own business, it was like to my clients, like, okay, you know, it's going to be a little bit slower the first 2 weeks, but I love what I do. You know, I do have people working with me. So I didn't even take a maternity leave. So for us, it was very important to have things lined up before we had the baby. And, you know, we didn't do a night nurse or a baby nurse, but we did have a nanny lined up for when I was pregnant, prior to giving birth. And then she was there for us after I gave birth, which at first I was like, I don't want somebody in my space, but it was so nice to have, even in the beginning there. And again, you know, I'm very grateful that this even happened. Somebody to help us cook, help us clean, help me clean the bottles. I think she was part-time initially, so we were lucky she worked with us. And I just want to mention that I found her through Hey Mama, which is like a networking group for women. It's all over the country. So it's not just New York City based, but I am in a New York City group through Hey Mama. And they have people who all the time, right? Like, hey, you know, we're giving up our nanny. Does anybody want this amazing woman? So I was like, yes, we do. And again, we were super lucky. Her name is Perry. She's part of the family now. But she was flexible. And, you know, even throughout. So I'm trying to think when she started full time for us. I believe it was around like 3 months. She started coming in longer hours, but you know, you don't know who to trust. And for me, it was really important I actually sat down with this other mother and we had a conversation, and she was like, oh my God, you know, I think they were moving actually to Connecticut. They were like, we wish she would come with us. But you know, she was from New Jersey. So for me, it was just so nice to sit with a mom, even though I didn't really know her, but to hear how great she was with her children. So that was our solution to hire, you know, a woman to help us out at home.
That's awesome. And it kind of prompts a couple of different questions for me. That you have a really amazing network and trusted people could give you that advice and that recommendation. I think that's so important. And I think to a separate degree, the Facebook community in everyone's town, I think is a really strong resource too. That's how I found our nanny, who also is like a part of our family and very similar. I think the families that she had worked with were over the moon trying to endorse her, and to hear their stories was really almost just as important, if not more, than the questions I was asking the nanny, right?
Exactly. And I just want to answer that question. So it is Hey Mama, not Hi Mama. Hey Mama.
Hey, H-E-Y.
H-E-Y, yeah. And it does cost money but they do, they have different programs that you can join for free. You can try it. And it's been a blessing for my career and for all my mom questions. That's how I found Ashton's summer camp this summer. I was like, where do I send her? And somebody wrote on Hey Mama, like, hey, we're looking for 3 to 5 year olds in Southampton. And it's this little pod of 5 kids. And it's incredible.
That's amazing. I'm going to come back with more nanny questions in a sec too. Mike, I want to turn to you. You had, it's not even a luxury. You were able to have maternity leave that you could toggle, which is amazing. What was kind of your process thinking through childcare? Were you contemplating nanny ever? Were you always thinking group childcare? What was that 7 months like? And even prior to those 7 months?
Yeah, so I mean, Oliver's due date was June of 2020. He was born via surrogate out in Colorado in May, so exactly 1 month early. Our whole plans of driving out there and quarantining at the beginning of the pandemic, those all got thrown out the window, and we got a call from the surrogate's husband. Hey, the baby's going to be here in 30 minutes. Get out here as soon as you can. So. So that was sort of the trial by fire at the beginning, but I think at that point we knew that. So my husband's job had 4 months of parental leave that had to be the first 4. Mine was 3 months, but they could be at any point in the first year. And so sort of the nice thing, I mean, it's the one nice thing about COVID when it happened was that he wasn't walking yet. And so we were actually able to sort of both work and watch him for those 3 months in between when my husband's leave stopped and mine started.
Melanie's like, oh man, I wish.
it was December of last year when at 8 months he started, standing up and then falling everywhere, that I was like, okay, I can't actually do conference calls and keep him from falling. So that's when I needed to take my 3 months. And then, I'd say we sort of always knew that we were interested in group care. I did group care growing up. My husband was one of 6 kids, so I think through that he sort of had some group care. My parents are in Springfield, Illinois. His family's in Philly, so we didn't have anyone nearby. And so I think for us it was also just part of, especially through COVID, where we didn't get to see anyone, to be able to have him in a setting that we knew he was going to be around other kids. Sort of seeing what other kids should be doing, hitting the milestones and everything that way, was sort of important to us. And so, I'd say we sort of knew pretty early on that we were going to go the group care route. It wasn't before he was born, but it was during my leave that I was like, yeah, we've got to figure out something, and sort of having our days back, especially at the time we didn't know how long work from home was going to last. And so we didn't want him to be here with the nanny and all of us sort of in a small New York City apartment. So I'd say all of that sort of just contributed to us knowing that the group care was sort of the right choice for us.
Yeah, those are great factors, especially wrapping it all up in what is my home situation going to physically be like, and that's a really important factor to take care of and to really sit with and think, how will 3 adults function, or 2 adults function if you're starting to head back to work. Did you have a list of different places that you were thinking of, and did you have like certain things you needed to tick off the box that met your group care question?
Yeah, I would say, the big one for us was proximity. I work a 12-minute walk to my office, or from my apartment. So, I wanted something in the area where, once I did go back to an office, that I could get, to Oliver quickly, or if I'm at home, I can get to him quickly. There were a couple of options that were sort of right in between my office and home. So we toured 2 places, both virtually, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but basically the big factor for us was sort of that feel of education versus someone watching your kid. I think we came away from one of them from the other one thinking, he'll be fine here, he'll be safe. But it felt like, it was going to be 2 to 3 adults watching around 8 kids. And watching and making sure they were safe was sort of the message that was hammered home to us. Whereas with Vivvi, it was much more of a, this is sort of the learning plan. This is, what we focus on each month. I think having the education aspect of it was really what sort of did it for us.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And knowing that he was going to be safe as well.
Right. Baseline. Yeah. You already got that, but then there's so much more. And I think that's a great point for the audience to start writing your pros and cons, whether it be in a group childcare setting, or whether it be in a one-to-one setting. What are your priorities? Are you really just focusing on safety and care, and that's a priority, and that is great, then that's going to put you into one area of focus. Are you hoping for a specific curriculum? Are you interested in the pedagogy? That's going to be a specific pool that you'll want to look through, and that'll also help prompt some of the questions that you can ask the childcare providers or the childcare centers. And I'm going to pivot over to Melanie to also ask, what were your when you were thinking about school, you touched upon a little bit of what you wanted, but what were kind of the top things that really defined your choice making?
Oh, okay, top things. So keep in mind this, when we decided we need a solution right in the middle of COVID, we realized this isn't going anywhere. Again, we just moved to a new town. My husband and I both work remotely. So even though we have a home, it still gets chaotic with 1.5 to 2-year-old. So when we started evaluating schools, I asked, of course, the top question at the time, which I guess is still the top question, what their cleaning protocols were at the start of the day, at the end of the day, how they handle things if one of the children were exposed to COVID, and how they contained things. The school operated basically in a sophisticated pod model that we chose. So basically each classroom was considered a pod, and they had to move solely throughout the school in their pod. They could not interact with other pods. Just in case there was exposure, they could lock down the pod and not the rest of the school has to shut down. But similar to what Mike was saying, that I really love, we chose, our school is called Holly Pond. It's in Darien, and they had a set curriculum. They had a whole day planned out where I knew Amelia really needed structure, which is what she was not getting at home, to be completely frank. They also hit all those different areas that we wanted her to be exposed to. So music, arts, they do gymnastics, they're exposed to outdoor things. And each one of those, each part of the curriculum hit a theme for the month. So every month had a theme depending on the season, and they centered it around color and pattern, and everything was discovered through discovery, learning. And that's really what made it different for us. It wasn't just, like Mike said, like a school that just, it wasn't a daycare. It was a school. Like they called it a school. They considered it a school. There was a graduation in May. And also, last but not least, I'm a big like intuition person, like what I feel in my gut. And when even though it was virtual, when I met the director of the school and her teachers, it felt right. It felt like a natural synergy with them. The first day that they met them, they took me aside and gave me an evaluation on Amelia. They took such care in each one of the students, and it felt like a second home for her. I knew she was safe. I knew she was learning, and I knew she was socializing and being cared for.
So it sounds like you were thinking about your heart and your gut. And I would say for both you and Mike, the health and safety is still a very relevant question. If your childcare centers can't immediately be able to play back or show in real time what they're doing to keep you healthy and safe. I would say the same thing applies for when you're thinking about nannies. can ask questions about health and safety, but you can also sit with yourself and say, what are my expectations when someone's coming into my house? And what are the sort of the health rules and regulations of the road? And that's also a place where you can maintain control of and power of your own health and safety inside the house, but you can also, it can help set an expectation for what your candidates are willing or not willing to do, which is great. And then also, again, what are you hoping to get out of it from a curriculum space, which I'll share, Mike, you know, Oliver started at 10 months. You're on mute.
You would think I could figure that out by now.
That's okay. He was before his first year.
It was definitely before the first year.
He's still in the infant room, and I think for all of our our participants, attendees who are still, you know, you're still expecting, or you've just had your baby, I think that still plays true for group care. What is the environment as far as, is it going to be care and safety, or are you also implementing a lot of the developmental milestones and learning domains? And now I'll punt it back to Jocelyn and ask, what were the types of things that were, you said that you pretty much went right back into work and you needed someone immediately. And did you think nanny route because you literally just were jumping back into your life and work life, and you wanted proximity? What were some of the key things that defined your choice?
Yeah, again, so this was pre-COVID. And my daughter did start a school called Beginnings when she was, I think, 18 months. She was in the child program, but they did require a parent to go with the 18-month-old. So, you know, my babysitter and I, we took turns, my nanny and I took turns going, because for me, I, you know, really wanted to fully breastfeed. So that was very important for me to have Ashton close by. I do work from home, but I ended up joining like a WeWork nearby, because as all of you mothers can agree, you think you can shut a door, but once you hear that baby whine, you're like, wait, no, she wants me. Like, I'm here. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I've been with, you know, my baby the last 2 hours, and I am, you know, I do have these deadlines. So that was the biggest thing, is I wanted to be close by and have that, you know, luxury of being able to go home and breastfeeding her. So again, you know, since I have my own business, I was able to do that with a nanny, but, you know, like we all touched upon, it was important for me for Ashton to socialize too, and to be with kids her age. Like, it's a lot of fun to go to the park, but we chose Beginnings because we, you know, we just really loved their curriculum, and kind of like Melanie touched upon, they had like, it wasn't just babysitting. It was, here, we're going to teach them this month. You know, they like learn different countries. Like, I remember at 2 years old, my daughter was singing like North America, South America. And like, that was our party trick. I'm like, my daughter can name all 7 continents. Like, couldn't pick them out on a map, but, you know, it was definitely starting the curiosity, the learning process. And it was very adorable.
I love it. I want to get to a question around, you had mentioned like helping the cooking and the cleaning, and so many important components to just helping you survive and thrive as a mother. Was that something that you helped to define in your interviewing process? Did you already in your head have a job description that you wanted to share, or was that something that evolved as a conversation?
No, that was definitely something we kind of outlined in the beginning. For us, you know, we didn't expect her to cook gourmet meals or anything like that, but just like a light, can you make a salad for us that, you know, we'll take care of dinner, but something to complement it. Or I'd even be like, oh, you know, I have this window where I can watch the baby, or I want to be with the baby. Can you, you know, do a little cleaning and cooking while we do that? And so she was very open to that, which was, again, it was something it was important to us, because we didn't want to come home from a long day and then have to cook. So for me, it was like, I'd rather spend time with my daughter than cooking. So we, you know, again, she was a blessing. And I know a lot of, you know, our peers, babysitters, nannies, they don't necessarily do that, or then they make the price astronomical if they are doing that. So again, for us, we sat there and we were like, this is what we're looking for, in a babysitter and a nanny. We work these hours, we do have a little bit of flexibility. My husband doesn't have as much flexibility with his career as I do. So, she was very open to work with us. And she told us right off the bat too, she doesn't travel. She has no interest in coming out east with us or doing this. So that was something that we were happy. She kind of laid out in the beginning too. Like, we knew that, like, we're not, going to go visit family in Florida or go on vacation, and she's going to come with us. So that is something.
And it helps you prioritize, like, the travel isn't as important as getting a salad for lunch and helping out with laundry. And I think that's being able to present what you want out of the position is so important, because it will weed out people that are not interested in it, and it will welcome people who that's what they're excited about, that's what they're willing to do, etc. Yeah,
exactly. And she's a part of our family now, so we love her. We miss her this July. We're out with my parents, and she's happy to have the month off. So we are. Amazing. But I'm like, I miss you, Perry. I can actually get things done with you. With my parents, it's like, But
that's, I think, a really great point too to make with, I love when panelists come on and say that their nanny has become a part of their family. And I think that's a really amazing touch point when you are looking for nannies, that when you have endorsements of families who feel that their nanny has touched their lives in that way. It's also a really great point to understand how much you are willing to be a manager and have an employee, and how much you are willing to be comfortable with certain things that maybe you're more comfortable with your family doing than you're not with children. So around, like, safety, and are they able to go and take a walk around the block, or are you okay if they can drive your car, or are you okay to take them to the playground? So just thinking about those types of scenarios and what you'd want your nanny to be a part of is, I think, important too.
Definitely. I didn't grow up with a nanny. My mom was home. So for me, it was strange at first. Like, and I didn't, I would just be happy with whatever she's doing. And then, my mother-in-law kind of stepped in, and she was like, this is her job. Like, you can, tell her X, Y, and Z, like, and so that was a little bit of an eye opener for me too, to be like, okay, she is part of our family, but she's also here to help us.
Right.
So,
and that way you can have those conversations about parameters and expectations in a way
exactly
that maybe can't have with your mom. Mike, I'll punt it to you to ask if you're thinking about all these expecting parents that are out there, and some of the advice that we're giving. Are there any things that you wish you could have either given yourself as a first-time parent thinking through childcare options, and anything you followed versus anything that kind of you thought you were going to do, but you're totally went a different route?
I think for us, a lot of it was, I think not having the family around was sort of a big one. If I feel like things may have been different if we did have family in the immediate area. So I think, and that was something where we probably both were a little maybe naive about it. I was thinking of sort of all of my friends who stayed back in Illinois, and thinking of the support system that they had, and my parents stayed in Central Illinois for a while. My husband's in Philly for a while. So I do think that we both sort of went into this thinking, our parents raised us, it was fine. And then, we sort of look back and we think, wow, there was a lot of help along the way. So yeah, I think for us, what I wish that we knew ahead of time, I think part of it is that there's a lot of times there's not a right answer. I think one of the big challenges that we had with Oliver, and it was outside of daycare or childcare or anything like that, but one of the big issues was he ended up with a bottle feeding aversion around month 4. And so we were talking to doctors, specialists, spent a week, we were down in Philly, spent a week at Children's Hospital down there, because they were like, yeah, we don't know what's going on here. And it was, that was one of these big things where, we had friends who had kids, even my parents, Khan's family, who were like, just listen to the kid. Like if the kid is hungry, he'll eat. And it took 18 doctors, I think, over the course of a week for us to just be like, actually, give us our kid back. We're going to go figure this out. And I think sort of, that, and now he's great. And it was the big thing for us when we were thinking of nannies or childcare, where in our very first conversation with Vivvi during the initial walkthrough, we were like, what do you do with kids that have feeding issues? Because that was our hot button issue. And if we had gone the nanny route, that would have been the big thing as well. And luckily everything has been totally fine since then, and he's been great. But I do think that this idea of there's going to be curveballs no matter what. We've come to find out that he's not super predictable when it comes to sleeping. He woke up this morning at 5:30, and we have no idea why. And we just hope that tomorrow will be normal 6:30 or 7, and we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of this idea of going with the flow, and honestly, I think that having some sort of help is helpful when it comes to that. Because if you were just home with us all the time, and we had these curveballs just one after another thrown at us, it gets overwhelming.
That's so true. And the two of you could just overthink it. Like my husband and I overthink it. And I do love, speaking absolutely objectively, the infant rooms at Vivvi. And I think at a childcare center that really prioritizes development and care and learning, they become your resources. And you now have 3 more people who are surrounded by infants day in and day out, and their priority is to support their development and care. And you can play tennis and bounce off ideas daily, if not, by the hour on the support. And I think that's what you get from a really great childcare center on the infant stages. And then as they start to progress into toddlers and that structure starts to add on, they're also taking care of that development. They become your community there as well. So I do really appreciate the point of, where is your support system? Are they in another state? A group care might be something that makes sense for you. Where is your support system? Do you need to be, working right away, and you need that very close proximity care with someone you trust, and maybe a nanny is the route to go as well. Jocelyn, what are you doing this time around?
That's a great question. So we still have our babysitter that's going to resume again in September. So she'll be, I'm doing late October, so she'll be around. So, we're just gonna, and then Ashton will be in school all morning. So between her and school, and then she'll start pre-K because she's 3, which is crazy. And then, so
that's exciting.
We'll
yeah. Are there any things that you are doing a little bit differently this time around, or do you feel that you've just got you're seamless now because you've developed that relationship so well?
Yeah, again, I think the hardest thing was finding this person, who kind of, we fit into her lifestyle and she fit into ours. So that was the big deal. I mean, it wasn't like one and done. This is our person. We definitely interviewed a bunch of people. But again, for me, it was talking to other mothers, like you guys said, community. Like you really need your mom team behind you, even if you don't know these people like personally, but these networks of moms. I had joined this, it was called the Fit Pregnancy Center, which sadly they closed down. And it was this workout for pregnant women in Soho in New York City. And it was just such a great resource too. And I keep like writing to the owner, and I'm like, can you please open again? Like, you were my lifeline. I don't know how I'm going to get through, end of pregnancy / postpartum without you guys. So that was just so helpful for me, other parents in my community, to guide me to, what do we do as we're going back to work.
Do you have any questions that you ask during interviews consistently that was your go-to question?
Yeah, so again, we kind of, not that we didn't interview, the nannies more, we kind of asked the parents a lot of things. Every person we talked to had been somebody else's babysitter, nanny, or, someone they knew. So for us, it was like, how attentive are they with the kids? Are they on their cell phone during the days, or are they with, even as babies, we wanted our babysitter to be attentive and to be playing with her. Of course, it's great for them to learn developmentally how to play on their own, but, we wanted her to be in the room, aware of what was going on. Yeah. So that was like one of our first questions. Our second was like flexibility. How are their hours? Do they want to set time, or, would they work with you?
That's great.
So that was really important to us. And for us, it just, worked out too, to have our nanny was a little bit older. Her children were they were in their 30s. So she didn't have to be home at a certain time. Yeah. So she could be flexible. My husband is in production, and his schedule, he could be like, I'm home at 5, but it's really 9 o'clock. So, we were blessed where she could be flexible too. So that was huge for us.
That's great. One thing that happened to me when I was interviewing my nanny was I was just caught up in asking all the questions, and I was like, good. Okay. So when can you start? And she said, well, do you mind if I, come and visit and spend an hour or so with Noah, and, we'll see if that makes sense. And I just thought, oh my gosh, yeah, I forgot. It's maybe she wants to make sure it works out, and actually being present. And I don't, I know we all are dealing with some health and safety restrictions that we didn't have 3 years ago, but it is okay, I think, too, to offer come, if you can welcome someone into your home or welcome them to the park, and, get a sense of who they are. And just like Melanie said, use that gut instinct. If you're going to, jive with that person and really feel that instinct, then a lot of the other things will kind of fall into place.
Yeah, that's smart. We didn't do that, but that's really smart.
I mean, I wouldn't have done it if she wouldn't have suggested it. So she knew more than I did. Thankfully, she's here with us. So it's about 6:47, and I want to just honor the audience and ask if there are any questions out there that we could help answer. And so for now, I'm going to have you jump into the chat and pop in some questions, and we'll try to answer them for you. I did. Thank you for asking a question about a child in a group care setting part-time and a nanny part-time, and talking about how it arranged it. And so my son is 3. I don't ever want to say 3.5, because that means he's going to be 4 pretty soon. And I loved a nanny because I was commuting from New Jersey. I still am commuting from New Jersey to New York. I had unpredictable hours, and we wanted someone to support him in a very flexible basis, and also just in a one-on-one setting, because he had a couple health issues in the beginning, was in the hospital a couple times, and I just wanted to have him in my home. So I was a pretty risk-averse person at that point. And I think through the pandemic, and naturally through his age, we all could tell in the home, I think even with his nanny, not that we're getting bored of one another, but the socialization component, they start to say, I want to be with little people. I want friends. They start being interested in the little people. And I think at that point in time, I knew that this was the right timing for him. So I think it's interesting, and because I commute into Jersey, I didn't want him to be in the school full time, but I knew I wanted to help him transition into school. So I think part of it is thinking about if you want to start with a nanny, you don't have to do that as your 0 to 5 plan. You know, you can foray that into a group childcare or a preschool. I think at that point in time, you start to have conversations with your nanny about, you know, flexibility, and they're still able to do like the pickup or the drop off. And then they can start layering on different things like light housework and like meals and stuff like that. So I luckily had the nanny first, and because we developed a relationship over a couple of years, this was a natural thing that she had also been through a couple times over with her past families. So I think a lot of nannies who have been with their families in the past, they know the natural progression probably more than you do, and so they're prepared for it as well. Yeah, I think that's for me, it made sense. And Melanie, maybe you felt that way too. It made sense that having a setting for socialization was the right way to go too.
I totally can relate. I remember Amelia just being obsessed. Like, it might have been one of her first words. Like, it was babies, and she would see babies out. It was actually kind of heartbreaking. This is right again during COVID, and like she would see kids and run up to them, and she wanted to play with them and discover them and see what they were getting into. And it, you know, of course, like it was hard, right? She couldn't do that. And she would ask to see my phone, to see babies. And we knew it was time, and we knew we couldn't give her that socialization. Where also, like, you want to know what a big point for me and my husband was we wanted her to experience the world without us right there, right? Like, it's such a different experience for her to interact with kids and other adults, knowing mom and dad aren't right there, and learning how, like, when to sit for story time, and that she had to follow this structure and that way of socialization. It was huge for her. We saw a huge difference when she came home from the days in the beginning. But yeah, she craved it. She asked for it. And even to this day, her teachers say, Amelia comes in, she's like, what's going on? Like, what are we doing today? So they definitely start to ask for it around, I don't know, 1.5 to 2.
I think whether you do full schedule or you do a combo schedule, as long as you're doing something consistently, I think that young children thrive on that consistent schedule. So whether it's 2 days with a nanny and 3 days with school, it's very repetitive, and you're not just kind of, you know, one of our preschool teachers said an amazing thing, like, what would happen if you were just sitting on the floor one day and someone swooped you up and put you in the car and didn't tell you where you were going? And so I always try to think about that with the young ones, that they need that time to have that structure set in place. They need to know what to expect. They need to be prepared. That said, I think Oliver is going to be like running the show at Vivvi, because I see some of the children that have been there from infants, and they have this collective group that they have already been there for 2 years. They run the school. They're so comfortable with one another. They're so comfortable with adults. So I either say kind of go to the childcare route early, group childcare, or once they'll start to ask for it. I think they'll start to really get excited about it. And that's kind of your tipping point. Jocelyn, I see you. I feel like you're agreeing, but I also think there might be something you want to say. So I wanted to give you.
No, all I was going to say was I
face.
definitely, you know, Ashton felt that she wanted to be with people, and beginnings, it was 2 days a week, their 18-month program. And I definitely, you know, and I think I thought, because, you know, some of my friends did Montessori, which was a little bit earlier. You know, I was like nervous to miss that time with her, but I realized like you have so much time. And like, there was a point where I was like, okay, mommy, a part of being a mommy is working too. And you know, I love you. I love my work. I love daddy. Like, I love all these things.
Yeah.
And I think
your
just
oxygen mask on first before you can put others on too. Right.
Yeah, exactly. But like, she would be cute, and we would be like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm working. And like, and so just to see that, you know, even at such a young age, she's picking up like, you know, mommy and daddy love her, but they're also working. Like, I was just like, this is amazing. So that's what I was thinking. Probably
not
even on topic exactly. But
I'm wondering, do any of you have thoughts about an au pair or nanny share, or have experience, or colleagues that have experience, or friends? And any thoughts? I can jump in.
I mean, I can just jump in. I think in New York, an au pair is hard. Just because you don't have the room to house them. I had a lot of girlfriends who were like, when they moved the city, they were like, we're getting an au pair. That's our first. And they love it because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but usually au pairs sleep at, they live at your house for a certain amount of time. And my girlfriend is just like, we can go out again, with a nanny would leave at, our babysitter leaves at 5, so like really early comparative to a lot of nannies. But my friend Olga was like, but she's here all night, we can go out to dinner again. So they loved it. I can't remember the service she used, but it was hard to find the right fit though too.
Yeah, I think it's very similar into how you would be interviewing nannies. A lot of the same things apply. You are probably skewing slightly younger. But there is a mutual beneficial relationship, because you do need to have the space to be able to house them. But in turn, you're getting someone who, if you do find the right fit, could be a really great asset for you, especially if you have the space.
I will say that we did sort of consider the nanny share. I think being in Lower Manhattan and knowing that, I think that there was a number of, it's an area that you're seeing more families move into. So, we thought that there was a potential for that. Also, the dog that we have here, she can be, we say funny, especially around new people. So, for us, it was, if there was a situation where there was a nanny share where we could drop Oliver off, at someone else's place, that would have been easy as well. And we would have definitely been open to that. And then I think it just sort of came down to I'm going back to work next week and we have to figure out something. And so Vivvi it is.
Melanie, any thoughts about either?
I don't have many experiences with either. My friend recently just started a nanny share for the summer. I've found that a lot of my friends use nanny shares for solutions for these weird periods where maybe their school program is off, which I think is great, right? Because I do think once you get to know your community of moms, or your community, people are open because their schedules become flexible in the summer with various different things, vacations, summer camps, all that good stuff. And they are willing to share their help. And that way you also know that they're vetted. So a few of my friends are doing that as solutions for the summertime.
Yeah.
I, of course, am at mom and dad camp in Georgia, so I don't know much about it.
I've seen nanny shares work really well. I've also seen them get a little bit weird. I think nanny shares are in that middle ground where in a group childcare setting, you have power as the parents, but you are essentially saying, I trust your rules and your regulations, and I know you are going to be running the show. With a nanny, it's one-to-one. So you're calling a lot more shots from the beginning and laying out the expectations. And you've got, obviously potentially physical eyes on that person because you are spending a lot of time with them. I think there's a middle ground with nanny share in that it's financially probably a lot more viable. You have sort of a dual vetting process. So you're hopefully agreeing on one person, or you've got them primarily vetted before. And then it could also potentially get tricky if you've got friends that or colleagues that because you have to be accountable to one another. So I think it's more about the adults in the situation rather than the children and the nanny, and it's the parents trying to figure out if they're compatible and if they're able to follow one another's rules. So I think that would be the biggest piece of advice I would say is, do you have that group of people that you can kind of share the expectation with? Any other last minute questions? I hope we've filled up everyone's toolbox. Well, as people are thinking or maybe just taking a minute to digest, I know that this has been super helpful for me. I always love hearing everyone's stories because it helps me just even gauge my own childcare journey. The childcare journey can and should change if you're not following your heart and your head. I know one of the biggest, the most defining factors in the success of a child in his or her childcare scenario is the happiness and contentment that the parents are feeling about that choice. So Melanie, to that point you made in the beginning, it is really about trusting your gut and your heart and following that and doing all of the data research that you feel that you need to do to feel informed, but then kind of combining those things together, and that you can always change. And if something is telling you that this isn't the right step, it's totally okay to change a number of times over. But your happiness is also super important in defining your child's happiness. So with that, I'm so thrilled to hear all of your stories. I hope all of our attendees are feeling like they're walking away with more answers. And we're so thankful that you're part of the Hatch and Vivvi community. So thanks to Jocelyn, Mike, and Melanie, and all of you who attended, and we hope you have a wonderful night.
Bye, guys. Good luck. Community.
Hey, mama.
Yeah, hey, mama.
Facebook groups, they help.
Yeah.
Facebook groups.
Bye.
Everyone.
Bye, guys. Bye.